Every single strategy that we've been talking about in the previous video was about focusing the mind on only one part of the neighborhood of the set which is causing problem. There is many sets here and there in the psychological ecosystem, and each of them is monitoring the construction of other sets by putting them in the consciousness and taking them back into its own little garden within the psychological database. And problems arise when one of these monitoring sets wants to send something in consciousness, which is not within the boundaries of what another monitoring set wants. For example, as we said, some part of you wants to go approach a woman, and another part doesn't want the ego to get crushed. So the monitoring higher level set which wants to approach is going to send into consciousness lower level sets, so basically thinking ideas about approaching, but those ideas are going to go out of the boundaries of protecting the ego. And so this other monitoring set is going to want something else to go in consciousness, and so there is going to be a fight. And so this consciousness here is going to be spoiled in this fight. Each one is going to want to put something which is within its boundaries in this consciousness. And so it's spoiling this amount of consciousness which is available. It's spoiling it. It's making it very suboptimal and inefficient. It would be way more powerful to use this amount of available consciousness for just one outcome and just keeping using this amount of consciousness to go toward this set building without fighting with other, which is restraining the speed at which this new complex set is being constructed. So what you're experiencing is, well, you don't know what to do, you're afraid, you have no idea what you should do, can't think clearly. Basically, inefficient consciousness. Let's go back to the sketch that we've been drawing. Every single strategy that we've been talking about, may it be running away or may it even be going through the web of sets which are creating conflict between multiple monitoring parts. It solves the problem only for a limited amount of dimension of the problem, not for the infinite number of dimensions. For example, you're in a social setting, you start to get afraid and to feel awkward and nervous, because you're thinking, well, I feel like people are thinking that I'm weird. For example, one higher level monitoring set is bringing this idea in consciousness because its purpose is to take care of all the parameters that are happening. That's a good thing. But those ideas that come into consciousness, they are not within the boundaries of, for example, your ego, or within the boundaries of optimizing what you will get out of the situation. So now there is this conflict happening and you're getting stuck around this thought and you can think clearly, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. Running away would be actually going to other thoughts. This is actually what's happening with basic formal meditation when you focus on your breath. The only difference is that here you focus on your breath, and in running away you focus on other thoughts, which are not going to generate conflict. And so it creates a new path from this place of conflict, of psychological conflict. It creates a new path, which doesn't generate conflict. It's as if it opens a new door that you can take. That's good. But there is still all those other doors that if you take them, you're fucked. Going through it would be actually going through one or multiple of those doors, going inside, and from inside those doors. So for example, you will be in this situation, and instead of starting to think about something else which is going to be more positive and help you to get out of this trouble, you will be going within the psychological set which is creating the conflict. So, okay, I might look awkward. So now you're having this thought about, okay, people might perceive me as weird. And now you will take some parts of this set, and from those parts you will try to get to positive new sets. So for example, in a very shallow way of doing it, very basic way of doing it, you'd be like, okay, so this idea made me think of actually a clown, makes me think of a circus, and you will have this picture in your head, then you will have the picture of kids laughing at a clown, then you would have thought about travels that you've had that were very fun, even if it was risky, then you'd have places maybe that come in your mind, memories, whatever. It just depends on your psychology. It's very fast. If you've been practicing controlled circulation, it will become easier and easier. And so from that, what you've done is that instead of running away completely from this conflict creating set, you've stepped a bit inside, and from inside, from one of those doors, you've ran away from one of those doors, but by going through it. And the more you will be able to step deeper and deeper into what's actually creating the conflict, and then finding a way to run away from it from there, the more deeper you'll be able to create paths within this conflictual set, which will allow you to get back to positive and solving conflict in your consciousness. However, it's amazing, but no matter how much you do it, no matter with how many doors you're doing it, no matter how deep you're going in it, it will still be limited. It will still be like there is an infinite number of doors, and no matter how much doors you step in, and no matter how deep you go in and find a way to get out of the trouble from inside, no matter how much you do it, it's never going to clean all the paths. At the highest level, what's going to happen is that if you've done it properly enough, with enough depth and enough efficiency, what will happen is that all the shallower levels of depth of consciousness will start to work towards transmuting this conflictual set as well. You will be exploring only certain paths, but you will notice that your entire mind starts to try to fix it, and you will start to explore other paths, even if you don't really try to do it. Exactly like here. It's as if you're only going one way, but you will feel in your body, or you will kind of get the information that all your mind is exploring all the other ramifications. And so at the higher levels of efficiency, this is what will happen. Your entire mind will start to work around changing the entire neighborhood of this conflictual set so that it only perceives positive from it. That will be the higher levels of efficiency, completely changing the perception of the neighborhood of this set. So for example, every time you'll have this thought of, oh, well, I'm afraid people might think I'm weird now, your mind will only link it to positive other sets. The entire neighborhood of this idea will be completely positive. So you will actually love this idea. It will make you laugh, it will make you feel free, it will make you feel like you can connect with anyone. The entire neighborhood of the idea will go from negative to positive. But however, this is like yin and yang. This is the yin of what you want, but there is as well the yang of what you want. If you only have that, it's still not optimized. You want to be able to do that, but you want also to be able to do what we will call harmonizing. And so now let's finally talk about it. Harmonizing, what is it? So look at it this way. Let's say here we will represent one higher monitoring set, which is, for example, well, checking out all the social parameters of the situation. For example, if we apply it to social life. And so it will want to create sets which are within, let's say, these boundaries. Let's draw it this way. And if sets are being created in consciousness, which are, for example, here, then it's out of these boundaries. Okay, for example, let's take a stupid example. You get completely drunk and you can't even monitor what's going on. Your brain can't even manage to look at the social parameters. Now this situation is getting out of these boundaries. Okay, it's a silly example, but it works. So it wants everything to be within this boundary. Now there is another high-level monitoring set. For example, maximizing the ego. For example, very simple, very naive, but it does the job. And actually, it would be, let's say, like this. Up. It wants everything to be like that. That's the boundaries. And so, for example, this monitoring set will be looking at, okay, here I'm being perceived in a good way. Cool. Here, this person likes me. Cool. Here, I'm going to behave in this way because at the end, okay, it will do this. Perfect. And now, oh, I think people think I'm weird. Now it's here, but it's not within these boundaries. So now this one is going to fight so that this doesn't get into consciousness. It wants to get it out of consciousness, but this one wants to get it inside. So now there is a fight for the conscious space. It's completely suboptimized. And at the end, that's what creates suffering. Running away or going through it and running away from inside it would be actually like bringing a third, even higher level part, which would be, let's say, interested in these boundaries, which is just maintaining a flowing consciousness. That's what it would be wanting. And this one would take this element and be like, okay, let's bring it here, up. And so it's actually fucking all of them over. It's like, fuck you, I'm stronger, I'm going to take this idea up, I'm going to bring it back here into the positive. So actually what it's doing is that in kind of a way, it's unpolarizing the other sets. It's taking so much power over consciousness that those two ones that are in conflict, they can't fight anymore. They don't even have access to consciousness. It's as if two kids are fighting and then a parent come and is like, okay, now both of you shut the fuck up, I'm taking care of it. That's what it's like. You want to be able to do that because, well, it's going to solve a lot of problems if ever something goes wrong in your inner space. If you have this higher level part, which is well developed, so by practicing meditation, controlled circulation, you will develop this part of yourself. You will be able to unpolarize the conflictual monitoring set in this way, from running away or going through it and then running away again. We've seen it already. However, the problem is that as soon as those little kids will get polarized again in consciousness and will get back power over consciousness, and they are necessary actually if they exist, it's because they have some level of complexity, which we call some level of life, so they contribute to the well-being of the entire psychological ecosystem, so they are necessary. So they will come back to being polarized, and there you will have to do it again. Okay, right, let's call back the higher level monitoring set, which will call them off and polarize them and solve the problem and get back the consciousness to be out of conflict. This is why doing that actually enhances your number of moments of consciousness. Because when you do that, what's going on is that you are taking out all this amount of consciousness which was being sub-optimized by those conflictual monitoring sets. You get those conflictual monitoring sets out of power when it comes to consciousness. So all this amount of consciousness comes back to being used by other parts, and especially from this higher part which wants to maintain a positive overall chain of conscious sets in the psychology. So for example, a very simple example, something that you could try. If ever you find yourself, for example, in your house, lost in your thought, in a kind of very egotical chain of thought, you're thinking about things that would make your ego feel good, and you're lost in those thoughts. And you don't want to stop it, you want to go until the end of the chain of thoughts. If you try to call those higher level monitoring sets, such as this one, which would be like, hey, you know what? Shut the fuck up, don't go further, stop. We stop the chain. You don't go until the end of your chain of thinking. It will be hard because this other part of you wants to keep going. It's like you're having a movie in your head. You want to know the end of this egotical thinking, but you're like, no, you don't do it. And you wait. The moment where this ego part of your psyche gets unpolarized by this higher level set, what you will experience is way more consciousness. It's as if all of a sudden you are way more conscious of the room you're in. You think more clearly, you can make better connection between your thoughts. That's instantaneous. Why? Because you've just unpolarized from consciousness one set which was using a lot of bandwidth, which was using a lot of space of consciousness. So now this is free consciousness which comes back to you. This is why staying focused on something for an extended period of time will give you more moments of consciousness. It will give you more consciousness because you're basically unpolarizing all the other parts one after the other. So all the consciousness which was being used by them, it's freed for the part that you want to feed with it. So you're basically experiencing way more consciousness. When they will get polarized again, you will have to do it again and again. How to stop it forever? You have to harmonize those parts. How do you do that? Basically you do this. Look, it's a negotiation. It's like a negotiation. One part has to become submissive to the other. One part has to be like, for example, this one. It has to be like, hey brother, so he will talk with him, hey brother, look, actually I'm willing to do something for you. I'm willing to get all of my outcome submissive to you, to what you want. Anything I will produce, I'm willing to use it for you. So basically, my space will become part of your space. My boundary will become part of your boundary. So your boundary will extend. All right? One part has to become submissive to the other. And so the other will be like, oh, well, okay. So now, as long as something is within its boundaries, then it will be within mine as well, because everything that happens for him will be channeled for me. And so now there will be no conflict anymore. I will give you another kind of example. One part of you want to manage having better social status. It wants to go this way. Another part wants to manage being more spiritual, more humble, more detached from validation. So it wants to go this way. Okay, you get the idea. There is conflict now which is going to be created. Now what you can do is be like, okay, how can I harmonize them? How can I make any outcome of one of them being channeled into the outcome of the other? So for example, you have to try with both of them and find out by yourself which one you prefer. So for example, okay, there is a part of me which wants to have more social status. Okay, now every time that I will think about how to get more social status, I will actually think as well, not just about that, but I will add a step which will be, how will I use this social status that I get in order to be more humble and in order to improve my spiritual life, in order to detach myself actually from validation. So it will be like, okay, every time I get an outcome I want, how do I channel it here for him? Okay? And so this part will submit to what this part wants. And so now, as long as you will think about how to get more social status, but you will as well think about how to use this social status that you will get in order to improve your humility, etc., there will be no conflict between those parts. It will be fine, and they will collaborate together, and there will be no conflict anymore. Here, first example, one part of you want to look at, okay, I think I'm looking weird now. Now you have to think, how checking if I'm looking weird or not, how can I use it improving my ego, to improving what this other part of me wants? How checking if I'm looking weird can help me to actually get more validation? Now you have to think about that. How can I do that? When those parts of you are trying to harmonize themselves, what you are experiencing is just thinking. It just is experienced subjectively, as if you're just thinking. Because this is what is thinking. It's parts sharing themselves together in consciousness to create higher sets. That's what is thinking. And so now you will have to build strategies, basically. You will have to think about strategies. Okay, so have to find a way so that every time I'm looking weird, I can channel it into getting more validation. How the fuck am I gonna do that? Actually, I've given you ways to do that, actually. Everything is going to merge together, you will see. At the end of this project, what you will have, thanks to what I've built for you, is a structure to follow, which will harmonize all of your parts. Every single part of you which wants something, which usually creates conflict with another part, I will have given you the strategy to make them both have what they want. So your entire system will get what it wants from this strategy, which will end up being very simple. Why? Because, for example, when you do control circulation, I can't give you very precise steps to do because, as I told you, this is a never-ending process. The more you evolve, the more exponential it is, the more meta you go, and the more you have to transcend what you've been doing before. Because that's the nature of this psychology. However, if we apply this knowledge to one specific field, there is an infinite number of fields that can be created, but if you apply it to one specific field, such as dating, then now it's not the case. This is finite. This is finite. I can give you precise steps to follow and it will work. So in this case, I will be able to give you precise routines, psychological routines to do in order to make it work. For example, when it comes to approach anxiety, one part of you wants to approach Another part is like, wait, my ego, is it going to be ethical? Am I going to look weird? Am I going to disturb people? Blah, 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 so on and so on. If you use your thinking, I will show you precisely how to do it in a way that harmonizes all of those goals together, you have no approach anxiety whatsoever in any form. What creates approach anxiety is those conflict between the different parts. One wants something, the other is like, well, that's not within the boundaries of what I want. If you harmonize all of those boundaries, approaching a woman, no matter what is the outcome, it's going to improve the outcome of all the other parts of your psychology. So all the parts of your psyche are going to be talking together like, okay guys, let's do it. You will focus on doing that. Me, I will take care of this. You take care of what's going on around you. You check, and I will start to play together like a team. Instead of you going like, okay, I have to go approach, but I have to not look weird. I have to not disturb people. I have to hide myself. And you have zero level of consciousness then when you do it, because it's sub-optimized. Now it's exponentially more powerful. So then it becomes easy. Even more if you have tools above the psychology, concrete tools to how to do, which I gave you and I will give you other ones. Now, when it comes to harmonizing, not only within your psychology, but harmonizing the psychology of other people as well, and especially the interaction between their psychology and your psychology, how does it go? What's that notion? Where does it come from? Well, look at it this way. Some parts of you, they want to get the girl. As we've seen, how do we do that? What's the logic behind it? It's to give her happiness, which is giving to her psychology what its parts want, right? And so by extension, what does it mean? It means that what her psyche wants becomes part of what your psyche wants. Do you see the logic behind? Parts of your psyche wants to get her, but to get her, you need to give her what she wants. So what she wants becomes part of what you want. You get the idea? So it becomes interconnected. What other people want become part of what you want. And so now basically what's going on is that you have to harmonize most of the parts of your psyche with their parts of their psyche and what they want. So it becomes like an inter-psyche. There is your psychology, their psychology, and because what their psychology wants become parts of what your psychology wants, because your psychology wants to get things from them. And in order to get this, they need to give them what their psychology wants so they get mixed. You get the idea? So you have to harmonize not only your parts of your psyche, but you have to harmonize this with their parts of their psyche. You get the idea behind? You get the logic? Well, now what's cool is that, as we've seen, there is concrete action. There is things that can happen in the world outside. It will not harmonize your psychology, but it will help you to do things like running away. For example, you're depressed. What do? You go on Pornhub, or you light the TV on, you go on Netflix. Is it harmonizing your parts? Is it solving the problem? No, but it's running away from the problem. Well, what you want at the higher level is to be able to do running away proactively, not reactively, not being dependent from the outside. You want to be able to do it from the inside. There you get really powerful. But if you can do that, distracting you with your phone or whatever, it's still a valuable strategy, even if it's the lower level one, it's still valuable. In the same way, the flow state. You approach someone using the happiness hub. You talk loud, you behave in this way, you have this a bit threatening vibe, but we've talked about how to have it in an ethical way. What does it do to their mind? It's a bit like running away. You're forcing them to run away from their internal conflict. You force their psychology to give all the consciousness to a sub-part of the entire psychological ecosystem. You force her psychology to get aligned toward one outcome. So you can actually do this job for other people. That's what was the Happiness Hub about. So basically, if you have to wrap all of this up, what does it mean? Is that you will have to harmonize the parts of your psyche with doing the happiness hubs using the tools that we've seen. That's what it means at the end, right? Makes sense? So now we'll be talking about what you will do when you're out. For example, you want to approach people, but you're afraid. You have approach anxiety. Well, you will have to harmonize your psyche around the mere fact of approaching, but also with the fact of approaching by doing the happiness hubs and by using the tools, which is one more obstacle. Approaching in itself is already an obstacle which creates conflict in your psychology. But you want even more than that. to solve the conflict which comes even upon it, which is approaching, but not in any way you want, by using the happiness hubs. Well, that's a bit more complicated, but you'll be working on that. Moreover, we talked about motivation, procrastination, just about which are the sets which seem to have the best neighborhood around them. If you work on your psychology, you're out, you're on the street, or in whatever social setting you want to approach people. You start doing controlled circulation in your head, and you start doing what I will show you, which creates incredibly positive neighborhood around the idea itself of approaching someone. By doing the happiness hub, you will see it's crazy. So that now in your mind, there is a perceived incredibly positive neighborhood around doing those things. So what happens? Well, you crave for it. You crave to do it. Your entire brain, your entire psychology wants to do it. Well, let's do it. It's positive, incredible, positive neighborhood. Let's do it. Let's approach and let's do it, and let's talk loud. Let's take space. Let's do it in this way. Let's be sexual. Let's escalate. They will want to do it. Your entire brain will want to do it. That's the goal. You want to harmonize your entire psychology around doing what is going to harmonize their psychology with yours. So it's not just harmonizing your psychology. It's not only harmonizing them, but it's harmonizing them both, which means that you want her entire psychological system to be harmonized around what you want, which is, for example, having sex with her, for example, having a relationship with her, getting married with her, just having a drink with her, or whatever. You want her entire psychology to be harmonized with this idea. And for that to happen, you have to harmonize your entire psychology around what her psychology wants, because we've talked about it. So you see the idea. So this is why we could wrap up the entire idea of being efficient at dating, or with people in general. We could just simplify it. We can reduce it to harmonizing the inter-boundaries of happiness of each of you guys wants. Harmonizing the inter-boundaries. Harmonizing your boundaries would be, we could call that harmonizing your intra-boundaries. And this is harmonizing the inter-boundaries. Not intra, but inter, with other people. Your intra and their intra. So this is the inter-boundaries. You see the idea? Does it make sense? One last thing that we will need to add, it will be on the next video, will be the idea of entropy. Because, well, when you're dealing with your intra-boundaries, with your psychological boundaries, most of the time you get, if you have to compare how difficult it is for one part of you to know accurately what another part of you is about, to the difficulty for any part of you to know accurately what any part of someone else is about, it's a completely different order of magnitude of difficulty. And there will be something very problematic which is going to happen with harmonizing the inter-boundaries with other people. Is the idea of entropy. We will talk about that in an entire other videos. This is the idea of, well, actually, I don't even really know what they are about. I think I know, but actually most of the time it's not the case. I'm wrong. There is a lot of entropy. We will talk about that in the next video. Just before switching on the next video, I would like to just go back to control circulation and give you a little more tips about how to do it if you want to work on it. Well, what I want to add is that you really have to keep in mind that you just need to be working on once at a time, and you need to alternate between all of them. So for example, one mistake that you might do is working on the expansion. So you'd be alternating between a lot of sets, psychological sets, right? And then you will want to create more depth, but you will lose yourself in it. You will spend more time into creating complex sets, and it will be frustrating. Well, you don't have to organize everything that you think about. A lot of the things you think about, they will go to the garbage. They will go to more shallow depths of consciousness. Let the shallower depths of consciousness deal with it. You don't have to organize everything. Look at it this way. It's as if you're playing Guitar Hero. You see, Guitar Hero. Have you ever played it? You have a guitar, it's a game, and there is notes coming up on the scales. Well, okay. Sometimes there is just notes one after one, and it's fine. This is still giving you points. And sometimes there is chords, entire chords happening. Okay, this would be more complex sets, all right? You want to optimize what you're doing so that you don't spend too much time on creating complex sets. If you could instead be creating a lot of single little sets which have lower levels of life, but still when you compound them together it's more interesting. So you'll be alternating with long chains of just one set, not very complex, and then you will build complex stuff, right? And then you go back to single notes, single sets, and then you build again. And then if you want later, for example, what thing you can do is be like, okay, let's go back now and try to link them together or whatever. You will do it the way you want, but you get the idea. Don't lose yourself in one of them because it will be frustrating. For example, meditation. One thing which is very frustrating with meditation basically in a formal way is contraction. For example, staying on your breath. Well, sometimes you just can't. It's hard. It's very hard. And if it's the only thing you're trying to do, it's very frustrating because you'd be going through months where you just can't do it. You'll be sitting and you'll be like, fuck, my mind just keeps thinking, I can't stop it. But you don't have to. You have to do Aikido. You go with what's going. If now you have to go with expansion, go with expansion. If later you have to go with contraction, go with contraction. If now you have to go with creating more complex sets, do it. If now you have to go with simple sets, but creating a lot of them, one after the other, do that. If you want to go back to exploring the more meta levels of your psyche, which is the second part of contraction, then do that. But do Aikido. Take the force that's coming on and don't resist it. Don't try to do something different. Go with it. Okay, right now I can't focus on one thing. Okay, so I will go with the flow, what it is. Okay, so it's creating complex structure. That's what I can do now. So I will do it. Okay, and you do it. Oh, now it's complicated. Okay, so I have to just create little level structure and one after the other. Cool. Now, I don't know, it's getting... I don't know, maybe... Oh, focusing on my breath is way better now. This I can do. Now you refocus on your breath. You get the idea. And so all of this at the end, let's do it again here, up. 1, 2, it was like this. Expansion, contraction, control circulation. Okay. So basically just like, look, contraction is one polarity. Expansion is another polarity. This is polarities, and you do one after the other. And in each of them, there is micropolarity. Look, up. Okay, right? You get the idea. Micropolarities, which in a bit higher polarities. Don't forget what's in the middle as well. We talked about it, which is waiting for shallower levels of depth of consciousness to bring things into consciousness. And using them for expansion or contraction. Well, and even that, all of that, up, we could see it like this. It's one polarity of a higher dimension, which here we could just put the notion of resting. This, what you're doing this, is very proactive. This is what we could associate with proactivity, being proactive toward the positive. We talked about it. The other polarity would be resting. So sometimes, half of the time, you actually don't want to do it, you just want to rest, which means doing nothing. Let your brain do anything. That's actually part of meditation as well. You'd be focused, but if sometimes your mind is fucked and you can't be proactive, well, it's just time to rest. So maybe for even 20 minutes, you'll just be like in your thought and you will just let it go. And after 20 minutes, you might just kind of wake up and be like, oh, now I feel like I got out of this polarity and I will go back to the proactive polarity. Now you will go back on either contraction, expansion, whatever. Okay, this was a bit more of a more abstract part, but I wanted to talk about it for those who really want it. If you don't care about it, it's fine. If you wanted to have this information, then I give it to you, so it's good, use it. And now we're going to talk about, well, entropy and harmonizing the interboundaries, so that when you will get on the field, you will just know exactly what to do to become a beast, to program your brain to just do what's necessary to get the results. Well, thanks for watching and see you on the next video.